entertainment.
Let's be renegades, reckless, running through our veins. Let's be renegades, good for nothing runaways. That girl got her own bag.
Katie Mathewson and her writing partner Tanner Bean got their start on Fox's critically acclaimed, tragically canceled drama Pitch. They most recently wrote for Marvel Studios' upcoming Hawkeye series on Disney+, while simultaneously writing Christmas Ever After, a Lifetime movie starring Tony winner Ali Stroker. These days, Katie and Tanner are adapting a comic book into a series pitch with Sony and Black Mass Studios, finishing up a horror movie spec and in pre-production on an indie biopic. Originally from the Pacific Northwest, Katie is a tattooed motorcycle rider who is even cooler than that description sounds. She serves as co-chair of the Writers Guild of America's LGBTQ committee, as well as the WGA's Inclusion and Equity group. Katie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for
Badass
having
babes of
me.
Entertainment.
Yes. Okay, amazing. So many questions. First, the most important, Pitch,
Ugh.
which we were just talking about.
So good.
So good.
good.
So good. Twitter still is going crazy. Bring Pitch back. Like,
Yes.
we're ready for it.
We are. Like, why
I
not?
know.
There's got to be a streamer out there, somebody that wants to bring it back. Come on.
Yes.
I know. Even it coming back on Hulu was so bittersweet because it was just like so lovely to see people who were getting into it for the first time ever. And we're just like, what is this show? It's so great. Wait, why are there only 10 episodes? And I was just like, I know. Make it come back.
So tragically canceled, it's seriously the only way to describe how about that show. It was canceled, upset. How was it writing for that show that was about the first woman to play in the Major League Baseball?
It was just such a dream come true. That was my and Tanner's like first job in a writer's room. That was our first staff job. And we couldn't have asked for a better experience. Just top to bottom, that show was the best possible people that we could work with. We had an amazing showrunner, Kevin Falls, and an amazing number two, Becky Hartman Edwards. And the writer's room was just supportive and lovely and open and friendly. And, our directors, our producers, Dan, we had Harris Sparks, like just everyone kind of behind the camera in the room were just so talented and so lovely. And then, in front of the camera, like Kylie and Mark Paul and Allie and Mark, it's just that team of people were incredible. Like we'll still in touch with several of them and we'll wax poetic about Pitch and how great it was and how much we miss it. And it's, we couldn't have had a better experience in a room. So I think it will be forever the gold standard to which we compare everything else.
That's awesome. And I love your kitty cat, by the way.
Hi, Mila.
She just jumped up. I also have, our puppy is behind me. So we're just,
Oh, baby, the puppy.
we're going to pray that they don't, get into a fight in the middle of this.
That
Too
could
bad-
make for some
right,
exciting
too bad it's not video.
podcast, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
what's that sound? Oh, nothing.
So that being said, that your and Tanner's experience with Pitch, I know that we've had some conversations about you having a writing partner, being a part of the LGBTQ family. And I'm just wondering if you felt like it's been more difficult to get into meetings and rooms and have people see your work with the movement of diversity, or has it been easier for you guys?
That's a complicated question. I think it's a good one though. I do think we're moving in the right direction for sure. I think, however, that diversity is kind of too often approached as box checking still, when there's just so much intrinsic value in just having representation, especially in a writer's room, and having perspective of people who have lived experience of your characters is what brings authenticity to stories and makes them resonate. And I think that just, even if you don't have those particular characters or storylines in your show, just having people with different experiences and different lenses is vital. And I think we're starting to kind of see that and value that. So the movement is undeniably positive. It's necessary. It's overdue, but I think it's also imperfect. I co-chair the LGBTQ committee at the Guild, and something we talk about a lot is how queer writers can be left out of those conversations. as can disabled writers and writers over 50. And I think, for us specifically, maybe it's because we won the right to marry for now. So we're not seen as marginalized or underrepresented, or because we're in LA and it's so accepting. But I think that that's not fully true. And that's not really what the experience is for a lot of people in our community. And I think in terms of representation, like, we aren't in the rooms we need to be in, which are the rooms that have queer stories and queer characters. And we're still often not hired or valued if there's no queer element on the show, as if that's the only thing that we can write about. So I'd love to see more emphasis and value placed in diversity and in uplifting underrepresented voices, but we haven't cracked it yet. We haven't figured it out, and there's still a lot of improvement to be made. But like I said, I think we're moving in the right direction. So I feel hopeful.
I definitely agree. We were having that conversation the other day about transgenders and them feeling as though you're only seeing them as a transgender character. Well, why aren't they just playing the female? So
right,
or the male.
Exactly. Right.
Especially, exactly, and with writers.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So especially, you can't, there's a lot of transgender women that I've seen that I'm like, damn, they look amazing, and I couldn't tell the difference. So why do they need to be, labeled as just trans? Why can't they just be an amazing woman?
Or an amazing actress, amazing writer, and just in the room, and it doesn't have to be that you're
labeled a
certain way.
Like everybody has their experiences to draw from, and if you're good at what you do, you're good at what you do.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Right. It's a very delicate line, I think, and I think this is true of most, if not all, people in marginalized communities, that you have pride in who you are and you want to be seen for that, and you want to be heard for that part of who you are, but you don't want it to be the only part of who you are. Like, being gay is a big part of who I am, and it does inform the way I exist in this world, but it's not the only value I bring as a writer, as a person. So I think, there's a difference between having a queer writer in the room and looking to them when there's a story that you want to get right and there's a character you want to get right, and valuing their perspective on that, but not only when it comes to that element.
Yes. Yep.
I think that if you're also just letting them be a writer and looking for their opinion and perspective on every other issue as well, then that's where we win, is seeing people for who they are and seeing them and acknowledging them, but also not only valuing them for that one little part of them.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Amen. Our show's sponsor today is Roasted Luxury. And this coffee is so freaking good. I can't even begin to tell you. You'll never have to leave home again for coffee. And it's organic, fair trade, and small business, which we love. This is a good thing. They offer honey processed coffee, which means that the coffee is naturally sweeter. So you badass babes can add less sugar and have that second or third cup without the guilt, which we also love. Go to roastedluxury.com and use promo code BABES15 for 15% off your entire order. And you can feel good about helping a local business person who is also a badass babe. Yes. So thanks so much to Roasted Luxury for being our very first sponsor on Badass Babes of Entertainment.
When you and Tanner received the news that you were writing for Hawkeye, congratulations.
Thank you.
Was there ever a moment of, we've made it?
Oh, the whole thing was, we made it. I feel, and now even, I think Marvel is one of those places that it's just such a dream. It's just something that feels so, it's like big and special and epic. And, Tanner grew up reading Marvel comics. That's just been a childhood thing for him. I became obsessed when we got this job. I had never read a comic book in my entire life. And then I quickly got caught up, especially with Hawkeye, with that character, with Kate Bishop, which is the Haley Steinfeld will be playing Kate Bishop. And that's, she becomes Hawkeye. She picks up the mantle. And I think that Tanner joked that I became like an encyclopedia in the room because I would be referencing like old back issues and be like, oh, we should try to do something like this. And, oh, remember when this happened and this, and people like, what are you talking about? So it's something I became a fan of, but I'd always loved the movies. And so when we got that job and got to like, be in those offices and just like see props from the movies just in display cases when we walked to the writer's room, it was just like unbelievable. I felt like I was pinching myself every single day walking into work. So it was just the absolute coolest thing to be a part of. And we're really, really excited to see the finished product.
I think that's great that you guys took that in, because sometimes you hear people, they're like, oh yeah, but on to the next thing, or I haven't made it yet. So I think that's awesome that to stop and take a moment and be grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So how important do you think it is for a new writer to have reps?
I think that it certainly helps. I don't know that it's not the end all be all. And I don't think that you're doomed or you don't have other options if you can't start out with reps, because I find that reps are often kind of a catch-22. You can't really get the first job unless you have them, but like you can't always get a rep unless you've kind of had that first job or that way to break in. And that's tricky. That's tough. I think that ever since the guild had to go through the whole like firing of our agents, we saw a lot of solidarity among writers and a lot of just like scrappiness and a lot of like, okay, well, how do we get those jobs then if we don't have agents? And upper level writers were offering to read lower level writers and acting as resources and reaching out, and different opportunities kind of were created to help writers find work and get their scripts read. So even though that has at this point resolved itself, I think a lot of those programs that came out of that and a lot of that kind of network of support still exists. So I think it helps you eventually, but I think writers are pretty scrappy and creative, and there's still plenty you can do until you get to that point.
I think that's great to hear that people are willing to help out, because I feel like you hear more of the backstabbing and chaos between other people if you're trying to vie for the same job. But I don't think that. I think the way of there's something for everyone, so why not help each other out?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I like to hear that. So I read Cool Kids. So freaking good. So freaking good. It reminded me of a modern day Breakfast Club, which is a classic everyone loves. I saw that it was in development. Can you tell us anything about it?
Well, thank you. Tanner and I wrote Cool Kids kind of as like we both grew up with those kind of like John Hughes classics, and we wanted to have something that kind of felt familiar in that way, but also was told very much through today's lens and felt like it had been updated. And just also to feel like the shows I watched when I was in high school, like Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill, to just like really exist in the characters and in just what it's like to be that age when you're not a kid anymore, but you're not really an adult yet. And so we ended up working with the producer, Michael Barra, at a company called Lively McCabe. And he had been working with different bands to use their music as IP to build shows, movies, plays out of. And so one of the bands he was working with was Echo Smith, and they have Cool Kids, which is, their big hit from a few years ago. And the band, we ended up talking to the band about this project and this script, and they just like loved it conceptually. And their sound is just so unique and so great for that age. And so they're kind of attached as producers as well, and using their song for the title and to use their music in the show. So, right now we're just trying to find a home for that, but it's been like an incredibly fun experience so far, especially just having that piece of it already attached from the writing process, because usually that's something that happens way past, our involvement as writers. So getting to, like, I'm such a big music fan, like Tanner moved out to LA to play in rock bands before he ended up doing screenwriting. And so like for us, music is just such a big thing. So getting to think about that at the writing stage and like what the song means and kind of the themes we were exploring with the script was really fun.
I think that's so cool. You already have that kind of attachment and song ready to go. There's a pup.
Sorry.
There's
Forgive
the
him.
puppy. How did you meet Tanner?
Oh boy. Let's share this embarrassing story. I went out with Tanner's cousin Andy, and he's like the last guy that I dated before I came out. So we like to say that Andy turned me gay, and
Awesome.
Andy and I are still good friends. He's married. He's fine. I love him, and he is recovered. But we were like on our like second date, and he was, you know, I had talked about being a writer, and he was like, "Oh, my cousin Tanner is a writer. You should read one of his scripts." And I was just like, "Oh, I would love to read your cousin from Oklahoma's script." And but I did, and it was amazing. And I sent Tanner something I had written, and you know, we traded scripts back and forth. And Andy and I stopped seeing each other because there's no chemistry. Who's to say why? Which had been my problem
Can't
in every
imagine why.
relationship. Exactly. And so I think that night Tanner emailed me and he was like, "I hope this isn't so awkward, but you know, can we keep trading scripts even though you and Andy aren't really seeing each other anymore?" So we were friends for about a year and a half before Tanner was like, "Hey, do you want to try writing a pilot together?" So it just kind of happened really organically. But every time we talk about how we met, I'm just like, "Oh God, here it goes."
I love that
Rehashing.
story. You know, it's like, who hasn't been in that situation before, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
Do you mean where you
Exactly.
date a guy and then you find out you're gay and then you still hang out with his cousin?
well, you know, I'm
That's
sure
a-
Universal.
it's a universal problem.
We've all been there.
We've all been there. Some, you know,
You know what
Oh
I'm
my
saying.
you know, whatever.
So you met Tanner in a very organic, cute love story way, but what is the best advice that you have for a new writer that isn't secretly gay dating a guy that has an amazing writer cousin or anything that you and Tanner have gone through that you think, "Oh wow, I really want to pass this on"?
This is gonna sound like such basic and obvious advice, but I think it's writing, like is writing as much as you can and making your scripts as good as they can be. Because when you get in a position where someone asks to read a sample and there's someone who can help your career or can recommend you for something, like you want to have a great script that's ready to go. And we're kind of in this unique position as writers where we don't rely on anyone else to be working on our craft and becoming better. And that's ours. Like only we can say that. If you're acting, you need something to be acting in. If you want to direct and make a film, then you need the money and the resources to make that film. And so when you're writing, that's the one you can always be getting better. You can always be improving. And I think that that's something we're really grateful for, because even in between being in rooms or having paid jobs, like we're still working on our stuff and making sure that we have a lot of scripts in our arsenal and we have the next thing that we're ready to take out and pitch or to try to sell. So it's just, you never want to be in a position where someone is like, "Hey, so let me read something of yours. You want to be a writer? Like send me a script," and you don't have something that's ready to go and that you're proud of.
You know, we hear that a lot from writers. I think we heard that from Sarah Lukasiewicz.
I was just thinking that.
as well. She said the same advice. So at some point, we all have to get together and have some margaritas and get all of our writing people together that are badass babes. And I think that'd be a lot of fun.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love the networking. It's always a good thing.
Do you have anything else up and coming that you're allowed to tell us about?
Right now we're working on a comic book adaptation, which is fun, coming off of Marvel. It's for kind of an indie publisher. They're called Black Mask Studios, and they have a property that is, you know, about 5 kind of like high school age girls, and they're super diverse, and it's very organic to the story, but they're kind of unlikely friends, and the comic book is really kind of this like origin story of a superhero team more than anything. So it, in that way, it does remind me of the first Avengers movies, where it's like, oh, these people don't really know each other that well and they don't really know how to work together, but they have to figure it out. And that's kind of what this story is. It's also just it's a lot of very resonant themes, especially for women, I think right now, but it's just like, there's it's like girl power and it's kick ass and it's fresh and it feels very, unique. And so that's something we're about to take out and pitch. They have a deal with Sony, so we're working with them, and that's something we're really excited about and hopefully can find a cool home for.
That is so cool. We love anything girl power and kick ass. Those things are our favorite, for sure.
Me too.
That's awesome. So is there a badass babe in your life that you'd like to do a shout out to, someone who helped lift you up to get you where you are today?
I would say for me, that has to be Becky Hartman Edwards. She was the number 2 on pitch. She has the most amazing career and credits. She worked on Sex and the City and The Bold Type and Parenthood and Living Single, and she just has a completely enviable career. But being the number 2 in a room is a huge job with a lot of responsibility, and especially because the showrunner gets pulled away to be in the edit bay and to be on set, and Becky was kind of running the room and keeping us going all the time, and we just learned so much from her. Like, she was just such an incredible mentor, and she let people make mistakes and she gave insight, and she was so approachable, and she would just pop her head into our office or pull us into hers and just be like, what's going on? What questions can I answer? How are you feeling? And it was our first room. There was so much to learn and there's so much to navigate and figure out. So to be able to do that in a place where you just had so much support is amazing. So she's just like, if I am half the writer and the person that Becky is, all have been very successful. So I think she's just the best.
Oh, I love that. That is amazing. And The Bold Type is one of my favorite shows. So.
Oh, so good.
It is so good. So well done. And the characters are fantastic and motivational. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's like you can, relate with them.
It's so nice to see female friendships that don't exist in like jealousy and cattiness and these kind of stereotypes that I think have just been perpetuated for so long. Like, to see them have like real relationships and, have ups and downs, but to like be so supportive and uplifting of each other that's how Becky is. So it's not surprising that it's the show she's worked on, but it's just so nice to have something like that on TV.
I agree. I could go for a few more shows like that.
Yes, absolutely. And, we talk about that all the time. And it just seems like the conversations that I've had more recently with, women were pointing out, we constantly are lifting men up and supporting men and taking care of men. And we need to do that for each other and not be competitive with each other and not be catty. And, I think, karma really exists, and it, what goes around comes around. And if you really try to help someone else and not be selfish and try to lift them up and elevate them, it's going to come back to you. And, and if you just do it and celebrate their successes, it's just like, like at Christmas, when you give out presents, you feel so good giving. And it's like you get more out of giving than you do out of getting. And if people would keep that in mind on a regular basis and then just really think about, our fellow women out there that really need the support. And we all do. And if we can just keep uplifting each other, I think that we're going to see a major change in this world.
A rising tide lifts all boats. It's true.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. I know. I like that. Ooh. We'll have to write that one down.
Yeah.
Sarah Lukasiewicz, again, from her interview, she, the person she did a shout out to said, we rise together. And, it's the same concept. And if we can just keep that going and get everyone to embrace that, I really think that some major changes are going to happen for women in our universe, and I want to keep pushing it forward. I know Megan does as well.
Yep. Excited for that.
We're here for it.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Katie. This has been amazing, and it's so great to hear your journey and the funny story that tied it all together, and to think that, you went from not knowing each other to, being incredible writing partners that have written some amazing stuff. I just love how you guys started, and, that'll be a great story to tell forever.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
Thank you
so much
so
for having
much,
me. It's
Katie.
been so fun.
Of course. Thank you.
This episode was produced by me, Megan Ketz.
And me, Brenda Fisher.
Thanks to our Grammy-nominated sound engineer, Herman Villacorta. We have another amazing guest next week, so be sure to listen. If there's a topic you would like us to cover, message us on Instagram at Babes of Entertainment, also on Facebook, Babes of Entertainment, and on Twitter, Babe_podcast.
And now TikTok, Babes of Entertainment on TikTok. Woo, woo, woo.
This podcast was produced by RSA Entertainment and Rogue Matter. Join the movement. Go Rogue.
Bad girl with a good heart. Lost boy got a fresh start. And she's my gasoline. Slick chrome on the Mustang. Drop top, no we don't play. 'Cause I'm her nicotine.